CNN Plus streaming service closed down after just 30 days.
Netflix bled subscribers first time in over 1 decade.
Elon Musk ready to take on Twitter in a tender way.
Former Trump's HHS official warned the dire consequence of China's lockdown policy.
Welcome to Wei and Kathy Show. I'm your host, Wei Fang.
I'm Kathy Zhang.
Okay, and sorry I was absent for two shows.
Yeah, I'm sure our viewers are happy to see we back.
All right. Okay, good to see you back too. Back to me. Okay. All right. So today we have a special interview done by Kathy about a Trump, former Trump HHS, the medical, officials.
Yeah.
Regarding the lockdown in China.
Mm-hmm. So does lockdown policy works, right? But actually, a lot of people know it doesn't work. By why it doesn't work, and what's the, dire consequence it could have. I interviewed Dr. Paul alias Alexander, who is a academic scientist and a COVID-19 consultant researcher, and also a former Trump administration official at the HHS.
Yeah, and you may ask why bother so much time on the Shanghai situation? And I want to explain to you that why do we want to do that? And please pay attention because it's potentially very, very significant. Anyway, let's come back to our news, important news today. Okay, Netflix announced on Tuesday that it had lost a subscriber for the first time in over a decade. Well, not a big number, 200,000. Okay, less than 1%. But it may indicate an important watershed point. Its stocks dropped more than 20% following the news.
So Netflix project that it could lose 2 million subscribers next year. It cited several issues that had negatively impacted the company's growth, including mass password sharing and the competition from other streaming services.
Well, but Elon Musk thought much differently. He tweeted that the woke mind virus is making Netflix unwatchable, while he agreed to a Twitter user who said woke mind virus is the biggest threat to civilization. And Musk has criticized wokeness in the past and said it will lead to a humorless society.
And Netflix seems not be alone. CNN will tell you about the CNN Plus story. On March 28th, CNN threw a swanky launch party for CNN Plus, which is a streaming service on the eve of its highly publicized premiere on 101st floor of Hudson Yards, overlooking Manhattan.
Well, okay, just 10 days later, on April 8th, Warner Media and Discovery completed their merger. And then on Thursday, which is yesterday, the merged company announced that it will close the CNN streaming service on April 30th, almost like exactly 30 days, 31 days.
Right. So what's the loss? 100 million on development cost, 500 people. It has attracted multiple talents such as Chris Wallace, whom CNN Plus paid $9 million a year. And insiders estimate CNN paid $200 million on advertising.
So altogether, you can see that $300 million flow into water, okay? And why? Because in 1 month, it's only attracted 150,000 subscribers, each of them paying $5.99, right? $6 a month. Okay, further, at any given time, fewer than 10,000 people were watching the service, according to New York Times.
And people on the new service in Plus were so shocked and even furious. Some said everyone is against and furious.
A ghost
and furious.
Yeah, that's the staff. That's a staffer. Okay. And some staffer said, if you think you have not a staffer, this is a comedian and a radio host, Tim Young. He wrote in his tweet, if you think you have having a bad day, imagine being Chris Wallace, who left Fox to be the star of the CNN Plus, and the CNN Plus immediately failed.
And Chris Wallace is now thought likely to take over the 9 p.m. slot on CNN, left vacant after the firing of Chris Cuomo in December.
But that's only a guess. Okay, we don't know whether that would happen. So, what does former President Trump say? He issued a statement saying that congratulations to CNN Plus on their decision to immediately fold for a lack of ratings or viewers in any way, shape, or form. In any event, it is just one more piece of CNN and fake news that we don't have to bother with anymore.
And the Fox News host Greg Gutfeld, he later added, BLM has done to black people what Chris Wallace did to CNN Plus. He enticed them with a promise and then ditched them on the side of the road.
Yeah, so Kathy is quite amazing, right? I think the last major streaming service was shut down. The short-lived, it's like 7 months, okay? And now this one is just 30 days.
Yeah, only with 30 days of life.
Yeah, and it's a swanky start. They can have a big start and have a quick finish. So it's quite amazing. Well, we'll see. What do you think? What do you think?
What's the reason behind it?
As a matter of fact, I read from one mainstream media about the reason why. They talk about like a Netflix story and a CNN story. And mind you that the Netflix also have its stock really crashed in the recent few days. Okay, after as we just reported to you, and then that article pretty much analyzed that how they made a technical error in lining up things for the CNN. The analysis in that article saying that they focus on bring on a lot of stars without focusing on a lot of great shows for them to produce. So they say big stars with the mediocre shows. That's the reason. But here, President Trump and Craig Gutfeld saying that it's the wokeness that is causing all this.
Yeah, so how do you think?
What do you think?
Yeah.
What's the reason? Is it technical operational operational error, or is the wokeness? Is the content? All right. Okay, want to know how you think? Let's move on to Florida. And Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a measure into law on Friday evening, which is just a couple of hours ago, that dissolves the Walt Disney World's special governing power in the state after the company announced public opposition to a new parental rights law in Florida.
Yeah, and at the bill signing ceremony, DeSantis said that Disney lied about the content of the state's new parental rights in education law, and he viewed the company's vow to fight it as unacceptable. This parental rights in education law that DeSantis signed into earlier last month, and it really basically it requires that this allow the schools to teach the kids third grade or under about gender orientation or sex education, things like that, because the governor believes such kind of education should belong to the parents rather than the schools. Yeah, so he said at the bill signing ceremony today, he said that you referring to Disney, are a corporation based in Burbank, California, and you are gonna marshal your economic might to attack the parents of my state. We view that as a provocation, and we are going to fight back against that.
Pretty frank. Okay, and the Florida Senate voted 23 versus 16 on Wednesday to remove the status. And then on the next day, the House followed suit with a 70-38 vote. And on the Friday, Governor DeSantis signed it. This is just lightning speed.
Yeah, so
3 days.
actually previously he just called into a special session for the legislatures to discuss on this bill, and that's what happened. Yeah, just in a matter of few days.
So what's the story? What about the act? Okay, the act is called the Reedy Creek Improvement Act. That was actually signed into law in 1967. When the Disney company is trying to ask a piece of land, which is 25,000 acres of land from Florida, and to build their theme park. And then for that purpose, to facilitate the theme park to be built and to be operated, and Florida did a big favor to Disneyland, Disney Corporation, and then by establishing this Reedy Creek Improvement District, okay? It's a special taxing district that allows the company to act with the same authority and the responsibility as a county government.
Yeah, so although Disney had enjoyed this type of autonomy for half a century, the governor and the Florida legislatures moved very swiftly to just dismantle such privilege. DeSantis said this wokeness will destroy this country if we let it run unabated. So in Florida, we are taking a very big stand against it.
Okay, so basically, what's the impact upon Disney? Disney was his own boss, and in the district, and now he got a new local boss now. That's to seek permission for improvement, any modification, and so on and so forth from the local resident elected officials.
Mm-hmm. And Disney's stock just dropped significantly, like about 30%. Mm-hmm. So wait, all these these three stories from CNN Plus, Netflix, and Disney. What does that tell us? Those corporations, they are just so much into this woke agenda, right?
Yeah.
But actually, from their subscription dropping, stock price dropping, what does it tell?
Yeah, it's actually very, very shocking to me. Okay, I'm coming from China, right? And for me to try to understand all these issues, those corporations, they are supposed to, they care more about the bottom line than this kind of, political issue or social issues.
Yeah, supposedly their main purpose is serve all consumers.
Right. Can you imagine that they want, I only want, Disney said, I only want the liberal people to come to my theme park. Conservative people, please, you don't come. No company would think that way, but they chose to do so. So it's just, what do you think? What's the reason? What's the reasoning there? Who's control their board? Who's control their, decision-making, executive management? Why do they do that? They stand to be heard right away, because even the, Florida government does not, strip away that special authorization.
Yeah, it's gonna just hurt so much of their bottom line, right? But it seems they don't care. It seems they felt that those, woke people who supported wokeism are more important for them. Mm-hmm. But do they really feel that? Do they really know that, or for a fact, more people in the United States among their consumers really support such stance? Mm-hmm. So actually, I just saw a very interesting report. Okay. It's called The Hidden Tribes, a study of America's polarized landscape.
Okay.
In this report, it's about almost 160 pages report. Mm-hmm. I don't have time to go through, but sure. Very interestingly, there's a survey in this report saying that only 8% of Americans consider themselves as progressive activists. Mm-hmm. Can you believe that? Yeah. Only 8%. And it says the most intolerable group is the white progressives living in major cities. Also, there is another survey saying that 50% of the Gen Zers disapprove of the cancel mob, mm-hmm. which meaning the Gen Z are, young people.
Yeah.
More than half of them mm-hmm. do not agree with those cancel culture. And if you, add those conservatives, independents who also do not agree with the cancel culture, basically these companies, these liberal companies are against almost like 2/3 of the population in the United States. So what are they thinking?
Yeah. What are they thinking? Are they out of their mind? I guess this wokeness probably is a type of disease that hurts your mental thinking.
Well, like Elon Musk said, it's a woke virus.
It's a virus. I think that's a better way to describe it. It seems to be a virus. Virus
just dismantle people's thinking.
Yeah, that does get to work, right? Virus hurts.
Yeah, and that reminds me of one of my interviews with Professor Victor Hansen. He told me that in the history of those communism, Marxism revolution, including Cuba, Soviet Union, and the Chinese Communist Party, when they were able to grab the power, actually they are not the majority. They did not get the majority support from the people. However, they have kind of certain characteristics. One is they know how to lie. They are very loud. Okay. The other thing is their behavior, their actions, very disruptive. And that's what I understand from this is when they can lie, they deceive people to follow them, right? Although people don't really understand, if people really understand their agenda, what they believe in, people won't follow them, but they know how to deceive people. And second, their disruptive actions, behavior, shut off people.
They deceive people and they scare people. That's the two way to get there, for them to get their way. Okay, so if we want to give them a new name, they should call that these people are loud, lying, and a violent minority. Right? Yeah. Is that accurate?
And
they can take over an entire nation, guys, with all the good people, numerous majority, super majority of good people around. This loud, lying, and violent minority can get the power of a nation, of a free nation, of a formerly free nation.
Yeah.
Should we let that happen?
And if, for example, those corporations, big corporations, the leadership, if they are weak, right? So they either just deceived or they are just scared to try to appease those, super minority and to just really ignore people who really need to pay attention to.
Yeah. Yeah, so what do you think? This is a myth. This to many people is a myth, right? Why do those corporations just would rather hurt their bottom line and than just serving all customers? And that's very, very strange. Okay, we want to get you what's your thought. Okay, let's move on to the next. Elon Musk's move. I think we should give you update almost every show. Okay.
Okay.
The pace is not that. There are not that many paces, but there are some. So basically, Elon Musk makes some hint. The hint cannot be more clear. Okay. What does that mean? In a few days ago, he just tweeted one sentence, say, "Love me tender, love me tender." Kathy, can you sing "Love Me Tender"?
Love me tender,
love me true. Oops, I don't have the next lyric. Okay, so. At that time, I just produced a YouTube show in Chinese. I said, "Love me tender" means tender offer. So Elon Musk seems to be hinting that he would come up with a tender offer. And then just 2 days ago, and then he tweeted another thing, blank is the night. Blank is the night. What he was referring to is the novel, okay? The final novel, very famous novel, completed by the American writer, I'm sorry, F. Scott Fitzgerald, okay, and the novel's name is called, title is called "Tender is the Night." So Elon Musk tweeted this, what is the night? The answer is the tender is the night. So without any doubt, you know that he's coming up with a tender offer. As you know, tender offer is a conditional offer with a fixed price. All right, so basically, as you know, the Twitter board came up with this poison pill, right? Just whenever there's somebody try to take over, in this case Elon Musk, they're gonna let all the current shareholder to buy new share, which is created out of thin air with a fraction of the today's price, basically diluting the value of each share. And everybody can do that, every shareholder, except the takeover person, which is Elon Musk. So then Elon Musk have to come up with more money to buy this diluted share so that he can have enough share to, basically to control the company. That's called a poison pill. And then Elon Musk then will be counter that with a tender offer. Tender offer basically means that Elon Musk saying that I'm going to offer $60. This is my number, okay? $60 to buy 328 million shares. And if I got enough of them, which means I got over 50% of the total share, I'm gonna run this transaction, if I cannot get the promise to sell me 328 million Twitter shares, my offer is off. Okay, so basically that's called a tender offer. So the tender offer essentially jump over the board and go talk to and basically announce that publicly to the current entire group of shareholders. Okay, could the poison pill defense defeat this broad tender offer? Well, it's difficult to say. If the price is high enough, and then the poison pill may not garner enough defense because some shareholder would revolt. They will not follow the board's direction, and they are willing to sell this to Elon Musk. This is especially true when considering that Twitter has never been a company good at making money. They've been losing money. Only with the exception of 1 or 2 quarters they make money, and they've been just losing money. Last year they lost $228 million. Okay, after 15 years in business, they're still losing money. It's just a financially weak company. And then if Elon Musk's price is high enough, well, he could succeed. And then, so how did Elon Musk coming up with the funding? Okay, so he could naturally sell some Tesla stock. He owned $170 billion value, okay, in the Tesla stock. And no, he decided not to do that. He just want to borrow money. Okay, he raised debt, which basically preferred debt, and against his Tesla stock. They indicate that Elon Musk thinks he has faith in his company, has faith in the future value of the Tesla stock, so he's willing to just borrow money and pay for this tender offer. And then that's a very, very smart move. As a matter of fact, just 1 day later, after he tweeted this tender thing, let me tender, and then tender in the night, Tesla announced the quarterly report. Fantastic number. Okay, so his wealth just keep increasing. So anyway, what would he do after he purchased Twitter if he succeed? And my opinion, if you ask my opinion, I think he will return President Trump's account. Whether President Trump would take it or not, I don't know. And whether he take it, would he just keep tweeting that and lead everybody to the Truth Social, assuming the Truth Social would be working? Mm-hmm. Very likely, okay? But would Twitter succeed? If you ask my opinion, after he bought the Twitter successfully, I think so, because this guy is good at running companies. So we'll see. It's sort of the epic battle, okay? If he give a good price, I think on the Twitter side, somebody who are not willing to see Twitter being sold, they could jump in the battle. So this could become a bidding war. And interesting enough. Okay, let's see how this will unfold. Okay, that's the Twitter story. Next, we're going to come to the COVID story, right? Especially the lockdown. Mm-hmm. First, before we start our story, let me just share you some relevance about why we want to run this story with you. What happened in Shanghai is something just incredibly miserable. Okay, you cannot believe the most wealthy city in the China, 25 million people living there. A good number of them are nearly starving to death. Can you believe so? There's no shortage of food. There's a lot of food around, but they just cannot get to the food, and then they are starving not to the Omicron. They are starving to death. What I mean is that they don't face the threat of Omicron, but they face the threat of the starvation. And so what's the consequence of that lockdown, and what would that do to them? And just in a very concise way, I want to tell you this. What happened in Shanghai is worth close attention, because this could be the starting thing that will trigger an avalanche of change in China. Or let's give it a few months and see what would happen. Okay, Kathy, what's the story?
Okay, so lockdown, does that work? A lot of people would say, it doesn't work. Of course, there are people still think it works. So actually, before we go to the story about the lockdown in China, let's have a very brief review of the lockdown in United States. There's a new study by the National Bureau of Economic Research recently The title is States of COVID Performance. It compares outcomes on economy, education, and health. The authors are the University of Chicago economist Casey Mulligan and Stephen Moore and Phil Carpen of the Committee on Unleashed Property. They compare COVID outcomes in all 50 states and the District of Columbia based on 3 variables: the economy, education, and mortality. So the data show, what data show? Data shows that the state ranking based on a combined score of these 3 variables. The top 10 in the ranks are mostly smaller states with the notable exception of the state of Florida. Florida ranked 6th. And we can recall how this Sunshine State decided to open itself relatively sooner than any other states after the first lockdowns, and it was derided as cruel and destructive. And Governor Ron DeSantis was called what? Governor Death Sentence. But the study ranked Florida in mortality is 28th, which is in the middle of the pack, and almost about the same as California, which ranked 27th, despite its far more stringent lockdowns and school closures. But in another 2 factors, Florida ranked 3rd for the least education loss and the 13th in economic performance. How about California, which has the most stringent lockdown? It ranked 47th overall, the economic ranked at 40th, and the in-person school at the bottom of the 50 states. In other words, Florida did about an average on mortality as other states, but it did much, much better in protecting its citizens from severe economic harm and its children from lost schooling. How about the bottom 10? The bottom 10 are not dominated by states and DC that had the most stringent lockdowns and were among the last to reopen schools. Their economics are for the most part still behind most others in recovering from the pandemic. So that's what's happened in United States. But at this time, this report came out just a week ago, China is experiencing the world's most stringent lockdown. So I talked to Dr. Paul Alexander, who is an academic scientist and a COVID-19 consultant researcher. He was the Trump administration's official at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Service during the COVID-19 pandemic. Just a very brief introduction of Dr. Alexander. If you are not familiar with him, he has a bachelor degree in epidemiology from McMaster University and a master's degree from Oxford University. He studied his PhD degree in evidence-based medicine with who founded this evidence-based medicine. He had experience worked in WHO regional office in Denmark, around 2018 as an epidemiologist. Also, then in January 2020, when the coronavirus came out from China, WHO asked him to transition his role as the evidence-based specialist to study this coronavirus. Because they don't understand this coronavirus, they asked him to synthesize all the information from China and for better understanding. And in May of 2020, he was nominated to the HHS as their science advisor. So that's his background, and he just breaks down why this extreme lockdown policy is not working, will not work, and moreover, what kind of a dire consequence it could bring. So without further ado, let's go to the interview.
We've looked at all of the science from then to today, and we can find not one instance, not one globally, any country, any setting where lockdowns work to curb transmission and reduce the risk of death. And I will fast forward to China to explain how what they said in the beginning, in their early lockdowns in Hubei, Wuhan, etc., that was a catastrophic failure, and they're paying the price now. No lockdowns ever worked in any country in this world, period. There's a recent John Hopkins publication that corroborated what I had written. I've written many op-eds, I've been on many media programs saying that the society should have never been locked down because lockdowns actually, the collateral damage kills people. It harms the society and destroys the economy. And the implications for the society and children long term, it will take decades to reverse the damage. China had enacted some lockdowns in January, February of 2020, and they claimed success. And WHO went out and said that China's model was successful. And it's our argument that the United States followed that model. But that was a catastrophic failure, and I'll tell you why, and I'll tell you why it's failing today. When you lock a society down, prolonged lockdown and tight lockdown, you could conceivably, in the room that you sit in, Kathy, you could close the windows and close the door and seal off all the ventilation routes and make it airtight. You could. You could do that. And you could conceivably prevent any microbe from the outside getting in, any microbe from the inside getting out. You could institute what we call a negative pressure room so that there's nothing coming in, nothing going out. However, here's what you're going to do by doing that. And this is what is happening in Shanghai today. And I am pleading with the people in China. I am pleading with the people in Shanghai. Get to your governments and make sure this is stopped. Here's the problem. When you lock a setting down so tight and so complete, you are denying your population, your base population, from becoming infected naturally and harmlessly. Yes, I just said that. This is the Omicron subvariant BA2. This is the mildest of the variants, the subvariants. It is highly infectious, but very mild, non-lethal. It will be optimal for the low-risk, healthy persons in the society in Shanghai to be exposed, to live lives normally, taking reasonable precautions, and be exposed naturally and harmlessly. I am not talking about you running up to somebody who's infected and sticking your face into their face for 15 minutes. The virus needs about 15 minutes of exposure for transmission and high concentration for transmission to take place. We know that by research. You can't just walk past somebody who's infected and you become infected. That's a lie. That's bogus. But let's come back to what I'm saying. If you keep Shanghai locked down much longer than what you've done, you've already damaged the people. You are denying the population in Shanghai, the low-risk, healthy children, infants, young people, teenagers, young adults, middle-aged adults who are healthy, from being exposed naturally and harmlessly to a non-lethal infectious virus. Because if they are exposed, they will become infected. Most likely 90% will show no symptoms. They will be asymptomatic. They will not even know they're infected because this is so mild, this variant. And they will recover and develop natural immunity that will be broad, robust, and long-term. So that is the first issue. By locking down a society, you deny the population from developing population-based natural immunity. And that is why the people in Shanghai, and I argue across China today, are going to be susceptible to Omicron. Because China in the beginning implemented draconian lockdown measures that its base population across China has very limited natural immunity. The United States has a high level of natural immunity right now. Other countries in the world, like India, etc., because they did not engage in the types of lockdowns that other societies like Australia, New Zealand, China, etc., engaged in, they are going to pay the price. Australia, New Zealand, every time they try to open, they are going to get surges in infection. But so what? So what? I argue with the population of China. So what? As long as your hospitals are prepared, as long as you give them the proper PPE, as long as the nurses and doctors are on deck and capable, and you have the correct number of beds, you allow the rest of the low risk society, the vast majority, to just live normal lives, no touch by the government. And you only focus on the high risk vulnerable. Yes, we have to strongly protect the high risk vulnerable in the population. That's the elderly in the nursing homes, the old age homes, even in your private home. That's the obese population because obesity emerged as a superloaded risk factor behind age. Obesity. So I'm talking about morbid obesity. Persons who weigh 250, 300 pounds, 400. That's a serious issue. And yes, there is risk to younger persons who have comorbid conditions. So you have to know yourself. You are at risk. We knew that COVID was amenable to risk stratification. And your baseline risk is prognostic or predicts the severity of your outcome, including death. So we knew that all that was needed 1 month after January, February, March 2020. In April, persons like myself, Dr. McCullough, Dr. J. Bhattacharya, Dr. Martin Kuldoff, Dr. Harvey Risch, we were arguing globally over 2 years ago to stop all these lockdowns and school closures. They are killing people. You are denying the population, the healthy population, the well people in the population, which is the vast majority, from being exposed naturally and harmlessly so that they will become infected naturally and harmlessly, not forced, just part of everyday living. And after they're infected, they will recover. They would now develop natural immunity. And it is those people in your society who will go forward and protect the vulnerable, who cannot be exposed normally. So you secure the vulnerable people first, properly, and you let the complete rest of society live normal lives. China prevented this from day one. That is why with Omicron now, in a place like Shanghai with 27 million, we have such skyrocketing infection because the baseline natural immunity does not exist. So your population there is susceptible to this variant.
So, Dr. Alexander, one issue with the Chinese government is beyond science or the medical treatment is that their goal of showing how their hard hand lockdown works more than.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, that's their political purpose, right? They have a political objective.
But they're hurting the population because I'll say it this way. Let us say they kept this lockdown cafe going for 2 more weeks. And then they say, no more cases. We have not one more infection. They could actually get to there. But here's the key. This virus has not gone away after 2 years. It will not go away. And you might have done this today. But when the new variant comes along, every 2 months we are seeing a new subvariant. They're going to be infected again. So by locking down, you are actually damaging the population. And there's another aspect. Besides denying your population to get its natural immunity, which is like a right, you are denying people something that they have a right to experience. Why do you think normally little children and young people and young adults don't get ill with pathogen that's always around us? It's the innate and natural immunity that constantly protects them. That's a natural part of living. Now you are taking people, particularly the vast majority of the population who's healthy, and you are hiding them away. You think you are helping them, government, Chinese government, but you are harming them, and I'm trying to explain it. You are preventing their own immune system from functioning the way it is designed. It will handle this virus, this Omicron subvariant. It will develop immunity. Sadly, there may be 1 or 2 people who are elderly and who have high risk. It's happened in America. It's happened in Canada. That's part of life. When I'm over 80, when I get there, if I live that long enough, my immune system will not be working like before. I will be very vulnerable to all sorts of things. I might be vulnerable to the common cold. I might die from a simple cold. That's life. It happens every day. So this zero COVID policy is illogical. It is irrational. It is absurd. It never worked anywhere in the world. It cannot work here. And I am begging the population and the government of China to understand. I'm trying to explain it simple. I'm taking all of the biochemistry, all of the cellular issues, all of the immunology out. I'm trying to be simple. Allow the complete majority of the low-risk people in your society to live normal lives. Let them take reasonable precautions. Yes, take precautions, but live normal, free lives, no lockdown. And you secure. I don't mean put them in a jail. You take precautions in the high-risk, vulnerable, the elderly that's in the nursing home. Of course, during this outbreak, do not let people visit them as they normally would. Take precautions, use barriers, face barriers, shields, whatever you can, etc. But remember, it's a simple formula. You protect the elderly, the vulnerable first, in the nursing homes or your private homes. Whilst you do that, you use public service announcements about healthy living, etc., the need for vitamin D supplements. That has emerged as a proper treatment in COVID. We found that a vast majority of people who succumbed to COVID, who died, were vitamin D deficient. Vitamin D has a potent role in cellular immunity, T-cell immunity in the persons who succumb to COVID. It has a potent role. So we message vitamin D supplement. We talk to people about their healthier lifestyles, body weight control. Drop some weight, 10, 15, 20 pounds. It will reduce the risk to persons and the society. But mainly, 99% of the population, the vast majority must be allowed to live normal lives, free. And you will get through this outbreak. But what the gift that you will have a gift. Your population will now have natural immunity. So when the next Omicron subvariant comes along, your population in Shanghai could withstand it then. But by locking down now, again, this hard way, you are denying your people the chance to use their immune system to fight this pathogen naturally. You are actually compromising them, and you are actually prejudicing them in a devastating way. They are going to be vulnerable. And here's the problem, Kathy. So far, what has emerged are highly infectious, non-lethal variants. There's always a chance, because in these single-stranded mRNA, in the replication of the genome, there's a chance that in that replication there are genetic errors. And because the spell checking mechanism is not always fail-safe in these single-stranded mRNA molecules, we could introduce a very lethal subvariant. So far, thank God, all that has emerged are infectious, non-lethal, but a lethal variant could emerge that could devastate humanity. I am talking about could potentially wipe out the world. And that brings me now to the vaccine. So I've tried to explain the proper way China and Shanghai should be operating these 27 million people. You are suffering them, government. You are. And the problem is this. When China and other countries, so I'm shifting to the second point, the key with the lockdown is you deny your population from getting close to population level herd immunity. So you deny the low-risk population from developing their own natural immunity that could be used to protect the vulnerable. So that's point one. Second, by locking the society down like in Shanghai, you are destroying the economy. You are causing business owners to go out of business, people to be laid off from their jobs, etc. In America, I can tell you, because I worked in the Trump administration, thousands of business owners and laid off employees killed themselves. They committed suicide because they lost everything. By closing schools, you harm children. Children committed suicides in America by the thousands. It will happen in Shanghai. School closures and lockdowns devastate the emotional well-being of children. So, by locking down as you're doing now in Shanghai, you are preventing the population from getting to natural immunity, number one, that will protect them today and protect them in the future when other variants come around. Number two, you are destroying the society. You are destroying the businesses and people's lives. Number three, when you do remove the lockdown and emerge, you are emerging to a fractured, broken, demoralized society that's depressed and angry, hurt. You're hurting the society. So it has never worked. It has never ever worked. And most importantly, four, you need to understand something. The virus responds to any pressure you put on it. And I need you to understand what I mean by pressure. I am talking about infectious pressure, immune pressure, societal lockdown pressure. The virus wants to do one thing. This virus, like other viruses, is a very simple entity. All it seeks to do is to infect you and invade your cells of your body, Kathy, and take the metabolic machinery of your cells and hijack it and use it to replicate itself, to reproduce. That's all. A virus is a very simple entity, organism. So it wants to infect me and just get into my cell. It does not want to kill me. Absolutely not. It just wants to infect my cells and use the machinery of my cells to reproduce itself and then spread. It does not want to exert a toll on me that it will cause my death. Because if it causes my death, then it arrives at what we call an evolutionary dead end. It cannot go forward. So it needs to keep the host, you and me, alive. That is why, as time goes on, the virus keeps mutating to a milder version. So much so that it's now at the BA2 subvariant Omicron. It's the mildest. Very infectious because it wants to infect as many people as possible, but non-lethal because it doesn't want to kill us. The government of China needs to understand that. That's the key. But by locking down, the virus detects you have taken an evasive action against it. It's smart. It actually looks at it like that you are trying to evade it, and it responds to every action that the society takes. The virus responds by evolving, and we have underestimated the evolutionary capacity of this particular virus to evolve and adapt to the pressures that we are placing on it. So, if you thought that locking down tight would destroy this virus, no. It lays in wait. It waits. And while it's waiting for you to re-emerge, it is adjusting itself and adapting itself. It is mutating. It is almost engineering changes on itself so that when you re-emerge, it is going to even be more infectious. So much so that it's saying, okay, so you locked down once to get away from me. Well, I'm going to make myself even more infectious. So when you do emerge, which you must emerge, I am going to spread even more prolifically. And what is the end result? Countries like China, societies like Shanghai, in Canada, in New Zealand, in Australia, in Austria, insane decisions. Their response is, we need to lock down again. And we need to actually lock down even harder. And when you do that, the virus does the same thing even more again. And when you reopen, boom, more infections. Oh, we need to lock down again. It can never ever work. All you need to do is the government needs to be brave. Brave. The data is clear. The reaction right now by Shanghai and the Chinese government is illogical. It makes no sense. It's absurd and it's unscientific.
Okay, so did you get the key point?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing it's only half of my interview. He pointed out how the virus actually react to the pressure, and then there's a possibility it will just have the next variant be very lethal. So that's his warning. And there's another kind of pressure that also could lead to the same similar dire consequence, which will be the next part of my interview. But for that part, I don't think we can, air it on YouTube. So I will put it on the Safe Chat. So please, if you're interested in knowing that, just register on our Safe Chat channel. So yeah, a lot of people noticed that actually this doctor is being, restricted on a lot of the platforms. So, but Dr. Alexander, he said he writes all about this every day. So if you are interested in his research, you can, go to his website, which we will post it here for your reference.
Okay, so to end today, so we should have some joke. How about that?
Yeah, so I think a lot of, especially Hollis and others are waiting for that.
Hi, Hollis. Okay, I owe you some debt. Let me try to do some catch up with paying. And all right, so this is about a story in China, okay, in Shanghai. Shanghai, the police is completely, preoccupied with catching those people who's positive, right? Mm-hmm. And then regardless of people starve to death, people, sick to death, ambulance doesn't take people if they don't have this certificate of their, nucleic acid test negative. This is, what is causing all the death in Shanghai, unbelievable way. So an old man was so hungry, and he was, walking by the lake, okay, in the community, and then he just fell into lake and, fall into lake, right? Fell into lake. So he was shouting, shouted for help. So two police officers was just nearby, but they were just patrolling only to catch anybody who dared to sneak out of the, the community. Mm-hmm. All right, so they just ignore them, ignore the old man, and then so the old man almost drowned to death, and suddenly he shouted, "I tested positive." The police officer heard that and then quickly jumped into the cold water and dragged him to the shore and to handcuff him. They're gonna send him to quarantine.
Okay.
The old man saved his own life. All right, so the mayor of Shanghai was doing a press conference, okay, on the prevention and the controlling of the epidemic. And he said the key protection material has arrived, including more than 80,000 pieces of maternal and infant materials, more than 100,000 pieces of drugs, and so on and so forth. So somebody was, in the comment section, just like what they are doing now, just typing there. The elderly in our family has been out of medicine for 3 days, and then there are no supplies. So without answering, the mayor continued. We also have 100 tons of vegetables from Zhejiang province and 10 tons of, mutton from the Xinjiang province, and so on and so forth. Someone in the comment section keep typing. Our neighborhood has been closed for 2 weeks, and there's no food whatsoever. The mayor then cannot ignore that anymore. So he found out those typing like just how we did, right? Mm-hmm. And then he solemnly said, "Comrades, you'd better look less at the supplies at your home, and more at this press conference." Nearly true, folks.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that will be for today.
Oh, okay. I thought people probably waiting for another one.
Oh, sorry.
Next time.
Yeah. All right, thank you. It's just unbelievable things are happening in our time, and good or bad, but we just bring them to your attention. It's all for us to, dwell upon. And possibly big things is brewing, and the brewing place is called Shanghai. Okay, well, keep bringing you update. Thank you very much for tonight's show. I'm your host, Wei Fang.
I'm Kathy Zhang. Thank you for being with us. Take care.
Night and see
Have
you
a good
on,
weekend.
Yeah, on Monday.
Bye-bye.
Bye.